Hello, good morning, friends. Feel happy, alive, just getting out of bed. I wanted to talk about correspondence. I've been surprised to see that a lot of my tweets and threads recently about correspondence have popped off. People seem to resonate with them, so I thought I would talk some more about it. Correspondence, messaging with people has become a really important part of my work. I want to stay in touch with a lot of people. I want to know what they're doing. I want to have mutual situational awareness. I want to be corresponding about different topics, different ideas, and hearing what people are thinking, learning from them. I learn so much from different people. Good things come from following my curiosity, and I also want people to know what I'm doing and tell them about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. And in some ways, I don't really have a language for this, but I am more than myself. I'm different people with different people. I show different aspects of myself and different connections and different curiosities and interests and themes and questions and ways of playing come up with different people. So being in touch with a lot of different people helps me to do that. I had Henrik Carlson on my podcast recently, and he has something written down about how he was comparing the internet. He was talking about the internet to one of his daughters, I think, and was telling her it's as if we discovered this alien technology and we're still kind of figuring out what to do with it. And I really resonated with that. I think I've even literally used that metaphor before I read it from him in conversation. But the internet isn't that old, and we're still figuring out how to use it. And my sense is we as a species are adapting to huge volumes, quantities, amounts of information, inflow, exchange that we haven't had to deal with before. And we're just learning how to deal with that. And so a lot of people have trouble with this. They have inbox 100,000 and they have lots of people they'd love to stay in touch with all over the world, but the messages are overwhelming. A lot of people I know get basically avoidant from an attachment theory perspective with messages, where they'll have a hard time responding. They feel ashamed that they haven't responded. It can take months before they respond, if they ever do. Sometimes people are willing to just let a friendship die because they didn't respond. I don't mean to laugh, but yeah. Anyway, it's hard. It's a really hard thing, and we're not used to it. We're not trained for it. But, I've personally overcome a fair number of the challenges with this, and it's great. I love the fact that I have friends all over the world, in every time zone, lots of major cities, that I can correspond with throughout the day about billions of topics, hear what they're thinking, learn from them, stay in touch with them, develop friendships, develop connections, develop alliances. And I think doing that for years will not only be satisfying for me personally with these friendships, but also be really valuable strategically. That's where a lot of my best writing comes from. That's where a lot of my ideas come from. That's where new projects come from. That's where new connections come from. I can support people in their own work and endeavors and relationships in a variety of ways. And, often Dunbar's number will come up of 150. And I just think that's, I'm not alone in this, but I think those are rookie numbers and we can pump those up. If you've met someone in person, especially, and you've shared coffee with them, then I think you can remember them and stay in connection with them for the rest of your life, provided that they're interested too, it feels good for both of you, etc. But I think it's possible to do that, and I don't know what the upper limit is, but it's surely possible to have it be very high. And I'm reminded of this metaphor that people use sometimes about the brain of, I guess, London taxi drivers have to know London very, very well. And they can just remember much more about streets and navigation than most people because they have to. And I think that's possible for us with humans, especially given computers. Computers can remember things very well. We can take notes on people. We can have message history on different platforms with people, and that makes it easy to remember, oh yeah, we had that conversation 3 years ago about this thing. I had this happen recently. This was such a lovely experience. I was at a party in a major city. It was like a salon on something, and there was someone in the room, and I was like, okay, there's this person, cool. And they said, hello, Tashin. And I was like, oh, hi. And, sometimes people know more about me than I know about them initially. And I was like, oh, hello. And they introduced themselves. They said their name. And then at some point in the conversation, they said what their handle on Twitter was. And I was like, oh, my God, this person has an Anon account, no face associated with their name. I think I knew that they lived in the city, but I think they said I'd met them before, but I didn't know it was them. And I was so happy because we'd had some exchanges in 2021 that were very meaningful for me, that I still remembered. And I think they'd forgotten them actually, but I had not forgotten. It's just that it was associated with this anonymous account on Twitter. I didn't know their face, I didn't know their name, and now I do. And now I'm like, this friendship has a whole new dimension. I'm really pleased to have made that connection. And yeah, I have friends that I corresponded with a decade ago that I'd be happy to hear from. I used to do a lot of email correspondence. I've been on forums. I've been in this context. I've been in that context. And I think friendships have such power over such long spans of time. Like my friendship with Ulysses. Ulysses is my oldest friend. We grew up in the same town. We've seen each other grow through so many chapters of our lives. I think we've been friends for 17 or 18 years at this point. I remember seeing him when I was 7 or 8, and then that was a meaningful experience, and then we became friends when I was maybe 14. But the value of that friendship is so large, and there's so much context, and it just keeps growing, and God willing, we'll keep being friends for years. And I have more and more friendships like this. Some of my friendships from Maple, for example, are people I've known for a decade now. Really deep friendships, so much shared context, and it just keeps growing. And now, it depends what beginning mark, but I've been on Twitter since 2007. I've certainly had Twitter friends for a long time, but Teapot, I started being aware of Teapot, as I would call it, in late 2017, early 2018. That's I would describe that time frame as when I would be aware of it, even though the term Teapot didn't arise till 2021. But whether it's 4 or 6, 7 years, some of those friendships are really growing in time. And just recently I've been deepening my friendship with Priya and Andrew Rose. And Priya, I met her we would have been mutuals in 2017 or 2018, I think. Maybe as late as 2019, but I think 2018. And then we met in 2019, and we just had coffee. It was an hour, and it was like, great, you're a person, I'm a person. Cool. We we didn't especially hit it off or not hit it off. It was just a nice coffee with someone. And then, over years, we've become better friends and are in new stages of that friendship. So we all grow and change, and I think correspondence makes it possible to develop friendships over years and decades with people on a global planet where we may not be physically near people very often. We may not be working directly with them. We may not be in an immediate community with them, but we can still develop a friendship. And I love this. And so I'm always trying to correspond with as many people as possible, as often as possible. A lot of things have helped with this, but just trying to think of a few things. One is just in the background is Inbox Zero. I've done Inbox Zero for years with email. It's possible. James and I's digital productivity coach will help you how. It's not even that hard, honestly. It's very easy. You could get to Inbox Zero today, no matter how big your inbox is. But that philosophy is really helpful to me. Recently, using the platform Texts, or its alternative Beeper, is a unified messaging app so that you can do inbox zero with multiple apps and also not keep track of who you're talking to where. Because, I'm on Signal, Telegram, WhatsApp, Discord, Twitter. I'm probably missing one or two. We use Zulip at the Service Guild. That's a lot of platforms, and it's hard to keep track of where you're talking to who, and having an app like that makes it easier. And there's also keyboard shortcuts for, archiving things and so on, delaying things like, I want to reply later. Also, just really helpful as a frame shift is, I think a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to have a perfect message that responds perfectly to everything someone said, which can be really hard if they sent you an article or asked you an in-depth question or shared something vulnerable and emotional. And a message can just be any reply. People would rather hear from you, and they'd rather hear from you sooner than not hear from you at all. So, just a short message like, thanks for that, or I appreciated that, or sending you love, or a question, like a sentence about how you are, can make it much easier to respond. And a response really doesn't have to look any particular way. You can just keep the connection going, and you can always say more later, or respond more later, or get to that later. You can kind of have threads in parallel in conversation and be like, I'll get back to that later, but just here's some thought you might want to see this thing, or thinking of you. You can also just send people a picture of yourself, or a thing you saw, or something that made you think of them, a meme, whatever, an article, a song. People really appreciate that, and that's a good way to stay in connection and let them know, hey, I'm thinking about you. This connection matters to me. I remember having Visa on my podcast, and he talked about friendship as shared context, and this really blew my mind because I'd valued friendship for so long, and it was just a frame shift where I could see, this is why he would consider me a friend, even though we've met once in person, and we've been Twitter mutuals for a while, but we're friends, and it's because we have shared context, and we can deepen that shared context over time. I got to see him again 6 years later, earlier this year, and that friendship deepened, and we have more context, and we've had correspondences over the years, and that frame just helps one dive into a friendship that, the standard doesn't have to be you live in the same city and spend every waking hour of your day together. Friendship can look a lot of different things, and as long as there's shared context, shared understanding, shared appreciation, a way that you like to play together, then it can grow over time. I'm thinking about my friendship with Jane, also one of my dearest friends, and there's been so many chapters of our friendship, and there have been different unlocks at certain points where we're like, I didn't even know we could play that game together, but now we love that. Like talking about movies, for example, for some reason we had the idea that we didn't like the same movies, or just had very different tastes for a long time, so we just didn't talk about movies, and now movies is one of the main things we talk about. Or humor, I don't know. Our sense of humor we've gotten to know each other's sense of humor and make jokes together, and that's been really lovely. So friendships can change over time, and correspondence is a way to have that deepen. And just so powerful to stay in touch with people over time. And I think it's worth getting good at. It's worth putting the time and effort into learning how to do it, how to respond quickly, how to stay in touch with a lot of people, how to relate to it in a way that feels good and energizing for you, not making it a big deal. I love to message on my phone also, just short, quick messages, either when I'm in transit, or I love just lying down in bed before getting up in the morning. That's when I do a lot of my messages. It just works for me. And so you have to find what works for you, but I think it's worth doing, and it's worth getting good at. It's how to put it? We all have access to the internet these days, more or less. I guess technically something like 50% of the planet does, but if you're watching this, you have access to the internet. And it's this extremely powerful technology that puts you in contact with everyone on the planet, theoretically, gives you theoretical access to literally everyone on the planet who has internet access. And it's worth using that well, and correspondence is a big part of that. And it's a set of skills that you can get good at and you can practice at. Whatever emotional blocks come up around it, you can work through, see from a new perspective, be lighter, more loving to yourself. Whatever practical blocks come up, there's solvable, problems. There's practical solutions too. So, enjoy corresponding with your friends and allies and acquaintances, and may it deepen the joy and curiosity that you have in your life.